अस्सलाम वालेकुम ख़वातीन व हज़रात, आई एम करतल एंड फातिमा। वेलकम बैक टू ग्रीन टॉक्स। आज हम जिस मसले के बारे में बात करने जा रहे हैं वो हर साल हमारे लिए एक नाइटमेयर बन जाता है। सर्दी के मौसम में पाकिस्तान के कई शहर स्मोक का सामना करते हैं, जिसकी वजह से ना सिर्फ सांस लेने में मसला पेश आता है बल्कि रोज़मर्रा के काम करने में भी दुश्वारी का सामना करना पड़ता है। तो आज हम यही जानने की कोशिश करेंगे कि स्मोक किस तरह से हमारी ज़िंदगियों पर, ख़ास तौर पर हमारी सेहत पर असरअंदाज होता है। ये मसला हर गुजरते साल के साथ साथ वर्ष क्यों होता जा रहा है और इस मसले से निपटने के लिए बाकी ममालिक ने क्या किया और पाकिस्तान उन ममालिक से क्या सीख सकता है। वी आर जॉइंड टुडे विद डॉक्टर मारूख। डॉक्टर मारूख एक जनरल फिजिशियन और पब्लिक हेल्थ कंसल्टेंट है। अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर मारूख, कैसी हैं आप?
जी वालेकुम अस्सलाम। I'm fine. How about you, Kuratulain?
आई एम गुड, थैंक यू। बिफोर वी स्टार्ट द पॉडकास्ट, आप अपने काम के बारे में ज़्यादा बेहतर बता सकते हैं, तो आप बताइए कि आप क्या करती हैं और स्मोक के हवाले से आपका क्या काम रहा है, एयर क्वालिटी के हवाले से।
जी, सबसे पहले तो thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this very important topic, especially looking at the current crisis of smog in Pakistan. So I am, as you said, that I'm a general physician, doctor, but a medical doctor. And right now I'm working as a public health expert in different areas, but the current topic that I'm working on is air pollution, especially in the context of Pakistan. And not only with CPDI, I've been working from the last 2 years on air pollution crisis, but there are other a couple of NGOs, international NGOs that like whom we are working together on research and some evidence development regarding the impacts, the socioeconomic and health impacts of smog and air pollution on human health, socioeconomic issues, and similar topics.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Let's just start with the causes before we get into the impacts. I think it's important कि हम causes के बारे में बात करें, क्योंकि हम चाइना की भी बात कर रहे होंगे later on in the podcast। तो किस तरह से do you think पाकिस्तान और चाइना के causes जो हैं स्मोक के वो different हैं, and how do they differ in terms of severity?
I think it's a very, very important question because, the current situation that we are facing in Pakistan that gets aggravated during the winter season. I think it's very important to mention China here because China has become an example because they improved their air quality in just a decade. And their approach is very exemplary. And I think not only Pakistan, but any other country that is facing the same air pollution crisis, that they can learn a lot in terms of policy, governance, scientific work,
Yeah.
community involvement, and many other top to down implementation strategies that one can follow to improve their quality.
Mhm.
So, if, well, coming back to your question, if we want to compare the causes of smog in Pakistan and China, because I agree that we can make a policy for one country, but it's not possible to implement the same policy for the other because every country has, their own context, their own resources, their own problems. But let's have a comparison between the two countries' sources or causes of smog.
Mhm.
So, it's a fascinating comparison because while both nations face severe air quality challenges, the profiles of their pollution sources and crucially their stages of management are quite distinct. If
Okay.
we look at Pakistan, the air pollution crisis is driven by a combination of largely unregulated and growing sources. The most significant contributors are vehicular emissions. This is
Mhm.
a culprit, especially in the urban centers like Lahore, Karachi. We have a fleet of old, inefficient vehicles, many running on diesel with very high sulfur content, which spews particulate matter. Industrial emissions, a major and growing contributor. Many industries like steel and brick kilns operate without modern emission system control systems, often burning low quality fuels, including rubber tires and high sulfur coal. Then, if we talk about agriculture burning, a highly seasonal but intense source, the post harvest stubble burning of rice crops in Punjab is a primary driver of the winter smog,
Mhm.
releasing a massive plume of particulate matter that blankets the entire region. Then, general dust and waste burning. These are unregulated construction, unpaved roads, and the common practice of burning municipal waste. They add significantly to the particular matter load. Now turning to China. The picture is different. They faced a very similar crisis a decade ago, but their source profile has evolved due to aggressive state intervention. Their historical causes mirrored Pakistan's, but today the main drivers are industrial and energy emissions. While still a major source, its contribution has been drastically reduced. China's primary success has been in forcing its massive coal fired power plant and heavy industry sectors to install ultra low emission technologies. It's now a managed source, whereas in Pakistan, it is largely unmanaged. Then, if we talk about the vehicular emissions, this has emerged as a top source in Chinese megacities like Beijing. However, the critical difference is context. This is despite China having the world's toughest vehicle emission standards, which is China 6, and the largest electrical vehicle fleet. It highlights the sheer scale of their vehicle population, but one that is far cleaner per unit than Pakistan's. And agriculture burning has been heavily controlled through strict bans and subsidies. Household coal burning has been largely replaced by natural gas in urban areas. What remains are the most challenging sources to abate. So, in summary, the key difference is the stage of the regulatory journey. Pakistan's pollution stems from a lack of foundational regulation and enforcement across all the major sectors. China, having already implemented that foundational layer, is now dealing with the residual challenges of a massive modernizing economy. Pakistan's crisis is one of the policy and implementation, while China's current battle is one of the technological refinement and managing the scale of its economic activity.
राइट तो
Mm.
आपने काफ़ी अच्छे से कॉजेज़ को एक्सप्लेन किया है बट लाइक पाकिस्तान बीइंग एन एग्रीकल्चर कंट्री एंड चाइना बीइंग एन इंडस्ट्रियल कंट्री ऑफ कोर्स देयर इज लाइक a difference in the causes and the sources of air pollution. But you have also mentioned कि पाकिस्तान को policies बेहतर करने की ज़रूरत है. So like before we get into the detail कि पाकिस्तान किस तरह से energy produce करता है और चाइना किस तरह से energy produce करता है because energy production and the use of energy is also something that contributes to the smog पाकिस्तान में and I think चाइना ने overcome किया है smoke के issue को क्योंकि उनकी जो energy production है they have moved to the renewable energy sources, right? But I think before we get into that, it's important कि हम health impacts की भी बात करें. I would like you to tell us in detail क्या health पे impacts है smoke के in detail if you could please.
Yeah, sure. I think this is the most important aspect of air pollution crisis because,
Mm-hmm.
at the end, it's all about your health.
Yeah.
अगर हम हेल्थ इम्पैक्ट्स की बात करते हैं तो आई थिंक इसको दो मेजर हिस्सों में हम कैटेगराइज कर सकते हैं लाइक द वन आर द शॉर्ट टर्म इम्पैक्ट्स एंड द अदर ones are the long term impacts. Short term health impacts of air pollution refer to the immediate effects on health that occur shortly after exposure to the polluted air, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these effects can manifest within minutes, hours, or days. And typically, they include symptoms such as irritation of your eyes, nose, throat,
Mm-hmm.
coughing, shortness of breath, bronchitis. And then they also can lead to pneumonia because of the low immunity and the ciliary movement inside your trachea and the airways. They can increase the mucus secretion, and that these things they increase the susceptibility to get infected. And then you can also face headaches, dizziness, and even there can be worsening of the asthma and other respiratory and cardiovascular conditions, and that can prove even fatal if immediate action is not taken.
Yeah.
And usually these symptoms are caused by particulate matter, which is PM2.5 or
Mm-hmm.
PM10, ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. And when we talk about the long-term health impacts of air pollution, then these are actually the adverse health effects that develop over an extended period due to prolonged exposure to polluted air. And these impacts can include chronic respiratory diseases such as asthma, COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and lung cancer.
कैंसर, या
Air pollutants can lead to air hyperresponsiveness as well, like excessive mucus secretions. Like you can see the kids waking up in the morning and they're saying, okay, we have a congested or stuffy nose, we cannot breathe. So some similar, and then there can be airway remodeling. When we talk about airway remodeling, उसके अंदर ये होता है कि फाइब्रोसिस हो सकता है एयरवेज का, जो कि इरिवर्सिबल होता है, जिसमें हार्डनिंग हो जाती है, और बहुत से, यानी आई थिंक it becomes a long lot of detail if we dig deep into it. But I think until here, I think we can just have a summary of all the long term impacts. Well, in addition, there can also be heart attacks, strokes हो सकते हैं, hypertension जो है उसकी डेवलपमेंट और उसकी जो प्रोग्रेशन है डिजीज की, वो भी एयर पोल्यूशन से लिंक की जा चुकी है. इसके अलावा न्यूरोलॉजिकल डिसऑर्डर सच एज कॉग्निटिव डिक्लाइन है, डिमेंशिया, एंजाइटी, डिप्रेशन, and then reproductive and fetal development issues like low birth weight in the babies, preterm births, preeclampsia, and then diabetes and other metabolic disorders are also evidence-based that they are actually linked with air pollution and the environmental toxins around you that you breathe.
ठीक है। तो ढेर सारे हेल्थ पे इम्पैक्ट्स हैं स्मोक के, और
जी, बिल्कुल.
इस मसले को हल करना भी उसी तरह ही ज़रूरी है। पाकिस्तान में हर गुजरते साल के साथ साथ ये मसला बढ़ता जा रहा है। पाकिस्तान के कई शहर अभी इस साल भी, राइट एज वी स्पीक, पाकिस्तान के कई शहर हैज़ार्डस लेवल तक उनके AQI जो है वो रिकॉर्ड किए गए हैं। इस मसले के हल की तरफ जाने से पहले अगर हम चाइना को एज एन एग्जांपल लें, क्योंकि चाइना इज़ द कंट्री जो कि एक इंडस्ट्रियल कंट्री है, बट दे हैव ओवरकम द स्मोक का प्रॉब्लम, राइट? तो किस तरह से चाइना ने इस मसले से निपटने के लिए उन्होंने क्या क्या स्ट्रैटेजीज किए हैं? क्या उन्होंने पॉलिसीज अपनी बदली हैं, या उन्होंने स्टैंडर्ड्स को मज़ीद स्ट्रिंजेंट किया है? उन्होंने क्या ऐसा काम किया है जिसकी वजह से उनका एयर क्वालिटी का मसला जो है वो हल हो गया?
Well, I would say that China's journey wasn't just about passing a few laws. It was a
हम्म।
multi-pronged, all-out war declared at the highest level of the government. And it unfolded in several key phases. The real turning point was around 2013 and 14, often called the air apocalypse, when pollution levels became so severe that they were impossible to ignore. The government launched its National Air Pollution Action Plan, and this wasn't just a gentle suggestion, it was a command performance with clear, measurable targets. The central government in Beijing told provincial and city officials, like, you will reduce PM 2.5 levels by a specific percentage by this date, or your career is over. So, this top down pressure was the essential catalyst. It made clean air a political priority, not just an environmental one. Then they moved with incredible force on the sources. They identified the biggest contributors, coal, industry, and vehicles, and systematically went after them. On industry and coal, they didn't just issue fines, they physically relocated or permanently shut down thousands of polluting factories around major cities like Beijing. For the heavy industries and coal-fired power plants that remained, they mandated the installation of ultra-low emission technology, essentially forcing them to use the most advanced and expensive scrubbers and filters in the world. They also transformed the energy landscape for heating, switching millions of homes and businesses from burning raw coal to using natural gas or centralized electric heating. On vehicles, they implemented a one-two punch. First, they introduced the world's toughest vehicle emission standards, the China 6, which rivals what you see in Europe. This forced automakers to produce drastically cleaner engines. Second, and perhaps more brilliantly, they bet big on the future by creating the world's largest electric vehicle market through massive subsidies for both manufacturers and buyers. Today, cities like Shenzhen have entire fleets of electric buses and taxis. Finally, they embraced transparency and technology. They deployed a vast real-time air quality monitoring network across the country and made the data public. This was crucial. It allowed citizens to see the problem and the progress for themselves, creating bottom-up pressure that complemented the top-down orders. It also enabled the government to enforce policies effectively, knowing exactly where the problems were occurring. So, in essence, they overcame it through an unwavering political will, a war chest of financial investment, technologically rigorous standards, and a commitment to systemic source level change, proving that even the most daunting environmental challenges can be reversed with a comprehensive, no nonsense strategy.
तो अभी आपने डिटेल में बताया है कि चाइना का, जहाँ तक मुझे समझ आई है इस बात से, कि चाइना ने अपने स्टैंडर्ड्स को स्ट्रिंजेंट किया और साथ ही उनकी पॉलिसीज़ भी उन्होंने तब्दील की, राइट। पाकिस्तान में भी कुछ काम किया गया है, जैसे ब्रिकन्स के भी हम पहले बात कर रहे थे कि वो एक सोर्स है पाकिस्तान में एयर पोल्यूशन का, तो वहाँ पर ज़िगज़ैग टेक्नोलॉजी मुतारिफ कराई गई है। इसी तरह जो क्रॉप के रेजिड्यू को बर्न किया जाता है उसके लिए भी कुछ पाबंदी आयद की जाती है, मगर लोग फिर भी वो करते रहते हैं। आप क्या समझते हैं कि पाकिस्तान क्या सीख सकता है चाइना के एग्जाम्पल से, और किस तरह से वो अपने सिस्टम्स को ओवरऑल बेहतर बना सकता है एयर क्वालिटी के मसले से निपटने के लिए?
I think Pakistan can derive critical, actionable lessons from China's successful air quality management strategy, which transitioned from a reactive to a proactive, system-based approach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The core learning is that the technological fixes are insufficient without a foundational framework of governance and enforcement. So, first, we must institutionalize a centralized cross jurisdictional authority. China's success was superheaded by a top down mandate from the central government, which set binding pollution reduction targets for provincial and municipal officials, integrating environmental performance into their career evaluations. So, Pakistan requires a similarly empowered supra-provincial regulatory body with the legal and political mandate to
Mm-hmm.
override fragmented local interests, particularly to address transboundary pollution sources like industrial clusters and agriculture burning across Punjab and Sindh. Second, prioritize source control over ambient mitigation. So China's strategy focused on the root causes like retrofitting coal-fired plants, mandating ultra-low industrial emissions, and overhauling its vehicle fleet. Pakistan must similarly direct resources and policy towards its primary emission sources. This entails enforcing stringent fuel quality standards, for example, eliminating high sulfur fuels, mandating advanced pollution control systems in major cities, and managing agricultural residue through mechanization and alternative uses rather than symbolic end of pipe solutions like smog guns, as we know. So, finally, leverage data driven transparency and public engagement. China's extensive real time air quality monitoring network provided undeniable evidence of the problem and progress, fostering public accountability. Pakistan should invest in expanding its own monitoring infrastructure and making data openly accessible. This empowers civil society, informs evidence based policy, and builds the public trust necessary to support difficult but necessary regulatory measures, such as transitioning to cleaner technologies and fuels. Ultimately, China's model demonstrates that overcoming air pollution requires a long term strategic commitment to systemic governance and source specific interventions.
ऑलराइट, सो नॉट जस्ट चाइना, ग्रेट स्मोग ऑफ जो लंदन हुआ था उसमें भी उनके कुछ क्लीन एयर एक्ट्स उन्होंने बनाए थे। आई बिलीव क्लीन एयर एक्ट ऑफ 1956, उन्होंने कुछ पॉलिसीज मुतारिफ कराई थी जिसकी वजह से दे वर एबल टू कॉम्बैट द इशू। पाकिस्तान को बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है इस चीज़ पर काम करने की, इस मसले को हल करने की। आपने काफ़ी अच्छे से और डिटेल में बताए हैं इसके कॉजेज़ भी, और किस तरह से पाकिस्तान जो है वो इस मसले का हल निकाल सकता है। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दिस इंसाइटफुल कॉन्वर्सेशन। बहुत अच्छा लगा आपसे बात कर कर। फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू गाइज, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग। आप देख रहे थे ग्रीन टॉक्स। अगर आपको आज की वीडियो पसंद आई हो तो प्लीज़ लाइक शेयर और सब्सक्राइब कीजिएगा। टेक केयर एंड अल्लाह हाफिज़।